Alright, so today I'm going to be showing you guys how I make slowed and reverb versions of songs. I've been requested this by Patreon a couple times now, and I figured it's a good time to do so since I just made a slowed and reverb version of a song I released. Now let's jump into it. We're going to be working in FL Studio, but you can do this in whatever DAW you're most comfortable with. Yeah, you probably could do this in iMovie. I honestly think Pro Tools is the best for this task, but for reasons I'm going to explain later, we're not going to be in Pro Tools. Now at a first glance, it might seem like a pretty straightforward process, right? You slow that joint down, you pitch the joint down, and you put some reverb on that joint. But if that's how you approach this job, you're probably limiting yourself in ways that you're not even aware of. So, step one, drop in your track. Now, if you're making a slowed and reverb version of a song that's just out and released and not yours, and you don't have access to the original files, don't worry about it. You can just drop it in and start working. But if it's your own song, you're trying to make like an official release slowed and reverb version, or if for some reason you just have access to the project, I'd recommend that you use a version with no mastering or mix bus processing. Now this is because we're going to slow it down before we start processing it at the mix bus. And once you change the timing or you change the pitch, it's going to affect how your master bus processing behaves in relation to your signal. So if you look at the waveform of the song here, you can't really see that there's not processing on it. But I mean, just look at how look at the volume level of it. Like it's not even loud. Like this is the level I'm working at when I mix. So you've got your song in, now double click it to open the channel sampler. And you just grab the pitch knob and move it down till you hit a pitch that you think it sounds good. So for this, I'm going to pitch it down 150 cents. That's 1.5 notes on a piano or instrument, 1.5 semitones, 100 cents is a semitone, 200 cents is a tone. Now, if you see this mode drop-down menu here on the right side, you can play around with these to change the time stretching algorithm. Different algorithms will be better suited for different tasks, but for this, I'd recommend using either E3 Generic or Stretch Pro. If you pick Stretch Pro, you can manually control the formants, so if you want your formants to shift differently than the actual pitch, you can do that here. You also don't have to use the built-in algorithms if you don't want to. If you have a plugin that can do this that you prefer, feel free to use that. I'd personally recommend using Pitch and Time Pro by Serato, the DJ boys. Pitch and Time Pro is the best time stretching algorithm that exists. I don't think there's really any controversy about that, but that's just my humble opinion. Unfortunately, Pitch and Time Pro is AAX only, so it's Pro Tools exclusive. You have to be there. That's what I was saying earlier. I'd recommend Pro Tools for this task. I do think, what is it called? It's Serato Sample, the sampler plugin that they released not too long ago, Serato Sample 2.0. I'm pretty sure it has the Pitch and Time Pro, the Serato algorithm built into it, so you can try using that if you want. I don't really use it though. So next is stretching the time. So now I just use this multiplicator knob here next to the time knob. You rotate it clockwise to speed the time up, and then you rotate it counterclockwise to go down. So I'm just gonna move this a little bit to counterclockwise until I get it to a speed that I think is good. So that's most of the work, right? We've got it pitched down, we've got it slowed down. Now we can get to the fun stuff. So let's hit F9 and open up the mixer view. Now, like I said before, this beat is unprocessed. There's not really anything on the mix bus. So to start out, I'm just gonna go ahead and load up one of my master bus presets. You already know what to do. If you want one, go grab it. There's a bunch up my Patreon in the store and on the subscription. I'm gonna get rid of a couple things real quick I don't wanna use. And then I'll load up an instance of Verb Suite Classics. You can use any reverb plugin that you're comfortable with, that you own, but I'm gonna use this because it sounds great, it's simple to use, and it's easy to visualize, like demonstrate the things I'm gonna show you. So I'm gonna place this right before this instance of Ozone Pro Imager, and I'm gonna turn off everything after Verb Suite Classics. So right off, just when you load it up, this is what it's gonna sound like. That's a fact. Needless stress, they draw all these critiques. Not bad, not bad. Not bad at all. But we're gonna make this sound better. So the first thing I recommend you do is find a reverb that you like and works well for the track. So I'm going to use this impulse response from a Lexicon 480. It's called Large Wood Room. But every reverb is going to sound so much different, right? They're all going to have different little subtle characteristics. They're going to emphasize and bring out different elements of your track. So just browse through a little bit, you know, keep the dry wet right around 50% and just go through until you find like a tone that you think that you're feeling, you know, it feels good. Now, after you get a sound you like, I recommend you dial the dry wet just back a little bit. Now, this is gonna depend, it's gonna vary kind of widely depending on the song and the reverb you're using. But for this song, I think a good place is between 30 and 35%. Now, if you have control over the decay, like this plugin has here, you can fiddle with that too. It's gonna control how long the reverb like rings out for. Now, I highly, strongly recommend that you EQ your reverb. It's easy here on this plugin, there's just an EQ section. But this will affect like what parts of the track are gonna be emphasized with the reverb. Where do you want your reverb focused? So if you don't like want your low end to get overblown with an extra 5 dB of bass, or if it's just like way too bright, your freaking hi-hat's going bonkers, you can make those changes right here. So I'm gonna demonstrate this real quick just so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about if, you know, my yapping doesn't make sense. I'm gonna take this low knob here and just bring it all the way down. So now the bass is gonna be really tight and dialed in. There won't be any reverb on it really at all. And the rest of the beat will ring out and be more spacious and sound, you know, give you that reverb, that DJ screw sound.
That's a fact. Needless stress, they draw all these critiques cause they can't just relax. Got a glimpse of freedom, I ain't never going back.
Quick heads up, once you make your EQ changes, you probably should go back to the dry wet knob, just fiddle around with that again because the balance is going to be different. So that's basically all the work. Now I'm going to turn on the stereo expander and the pro imager. One is just an expander, so it's just opening up the image a little bit, and then the other is an imager, so it's like refocusing certain areas. The low end I have set to be tighter, and the high end I have set to be wider. And then I'm going to turn on the last thing in my chain, the Brainworks Limiter True Peak. The last thing in your chain should almost always be a limiter. Almost always be a limiter. But yeah, the limiter is pretty straightforward. You just crank the gain up until you're driving it and getting a gain reduction amount that you want. Usually it's about 3 dB at peak gain reduction and maybe around -11, -10 LUFS, but that really depends on the song. Shout out Dan Worrell, he dropped that song 0 LUFS, I think, ushering in an era of peace and prosperity that the world has never seen before amidst the egregious loudness wars. But yeah, that's the whole process. So with this, I mean, your slowed and reverb mixes should now be clear, crisp, right, loud, and competitive. If you learned something today, I'd appreciate it if you could leave a like or a comment. And that's all there is to it. I am Dom Paris, and I'm out of here.
White range, black road, black light, white house. Pig feet, they know me. And they county niggas on me. Hit the lip, clipped over. Not another perk that's for you. Wild body scat, I shot it. Stop, bend over. No, you can't beat me. How about the ghost and they can't even see me? All niggas on shit, I look that down. You can't touch my bitch if you dare. Niggas be greedy, won't give me.